Welcome to Rauta's Death Metal Reviews. This time we go to international waters with a band called Hyperdontia, and here we have it with the album from 2021. Why so old one at this point of the year in 2024? It's because I'm going through the backlog of my older review albums, some that arrived already late when they arrived here, when they were sent to me. So, while the newer ones are pretty much done, it's always time to go a little bit back and check out the older ones that have patiently waited for their turn to come out. Now, this is a band that has been active ever since, and before that one, so there are some recent news too, but we'll focus on this given album. And this was released by Dark Descent Records, and Hideous Entity is the name of the game here. As you can see, pretty nice looking CD, no jewel case with the promos as it's often the case. So while we're talking about this older release, let's focus on the band's current state. 2015 and onwards, this band has been from international waters, and at least according to Metal Archives, let's assume it's correct with the information, Denmark and Turkey. Quite a distance, to be honest. I mean, if you really think about it, it's not so uncommon when bands like some, say, from the Nordic countries, Norway and Sweden, or Finland, Sweden, whatever, or France, Germany, you get the idea. Neighboring countries, when they do, it's just easy to bands, travel back and forth. But Denmark and Turkey, there's a little bit of distance, so that might be something that you really need to read up on it, with the interviews and all. But yeah, this is the case with the given band at the moment. It's relatively big since it's not on Underground at 3 episodes, because this actually has quite a big fan, base at this point. And it's curious because this band has only 3 albums out and only 9 years. I mean, only 9 years. There are lots of bands that have been like 15, 20 years and don't have really this kind of success, which makes this even more interesting. Like, what is the story with this band, how they are relatively big, given that, at least to me, virtually unknown band prior to this one. So anyway, Hyperdontia has been out for already 9 years, but this album came 3 years ago, and after, since they have done the newest album, Harvest of Malevolence, actually this year. But we're focusing on Hideous Entity, which is the second album. There are some splits and EPs, mind you, but we're focusing on albums. This is the second one. And here it says, however, it came to Mesako un Oho Records, originally 21. But it seems like Dark Descent Records picked up on CD and whatnot around the same time. So maybe there is some cooperation. Who knows what. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Here you can see all the different versions: digital, CD, tape, vinyl, etc. So it's relevant in that sense anyway. Comes with 8 tracks, about 40 minutes of give or take, and with rather gruesome cover. There's this kind of a corpse creature with teeth pouring out from the stomach and chest area, then some maggot-like creatures with teeth and all. Kind of a Cthulhu and Lovecraft thing going on. You have these weird creatures creeping out, and at the background you will see kind of a castle. If you really think about it, this kind of a horror theme is going like hand in hand with fantasy, old castles, bringing up to rather medieval black metal kind of bands, but with this horror theme of creatures and, I don't know, some kind of a corpse. It's very much taking to a world of like Warhammer, so fantasy horror stuff, and as well as H.P. Lovecraft and beyond. I'm already like, okay, this is interesting. When you see cover like this, it's already like, picking your brains, like, what the hell are these guys thinking about? Now, here it says themes: death, suffering, darkness. Rather typical take on the death metal side of things. And here are these 4 guys, posing like, okay, we're real death metal. And that's pretty much of the stuff. Now, indeed, Hideous Entity is a death metal thing. And it's quite, I would say, old-fashioned. Or other way put it, old death metal scene is very much, happening here. In terms of songwriting and choice of production, vocals, everything is pretty much reeking of old school death metal. So whether you call it a revival thing or a retro project is kind of meaningless. What you need to understand that this is going back into old school death metal ways, but not really the proto death metal stuff, meaning it's not really thrashy. So if you're thinking about old school, this is very much a generational thing. Some people will say it's really old school death metal when it sounds like 1980s is still going on. And then you're thinking about the early albums of Death, Possessed, and so forth, which means there are thrasher parts included. Now, if we were talking about old, but not that proto-death stuff, we're basically talking about the first wave of death metal without the thrasher things, which you could nowadays say, in case you want to go a little bit black metal in terminology, and say the second wave of black metal, death metal. Second wave of death metal is happening here because this is more like early 90s. So 80s are bygones and the thrasher parts are gone, and you're tapping into the very reign of, say, in a way, rather American take of death metal. Now, if this had come out in, say, 1992, you would have, say, people would be like, okay, Hyperdontia, yeah, they were there with, bands like Disgrace. They were there with, the Entombed and whatever. But we're talking about here what happened in 2021. And as such, it's a little late to the party, or the other way around, it's kind of a tribute to those old days. So if you're old school fanatic, you are now looking for, okay, what bands are you going to drop in? I'm going to save you the time. I'm going to put you on the map right away, because similar artists is already happening very much in Metal Archives, and this saves you a lot of time. When you're thinking about bands, this list comes down here. And obviously, there are always bands that I only know by name, so I can't really sound if this sounds like, say, okay, actually, there are lots of bands which I know, but and which is a style I didn't vote. You can see my votes here, actually. I put incantation and immolation on this map, but I wouldn't really call it Morbid Angel-like. I wouldn't really call it, what else there is something that I could mention? Maybe Tomb Mold could be there, but for example, in my opinion, Blood Incantation is a little bit different. But anyway, this gives you an idea. But then again, I haven't heard, say, Phrenolith, except by the name, so I cannot say if that sounds the most like that, and this is the most voted when it comes to similar artists. My point here is why I'm showing you this list and pointing you out that this is exactly the kind of American death metal we're talking about. The incantations and immolations, at least in my opinion. But like I said, people are always going a little bit different. Would you compare this to Adramelech because it's mentioned there? Some probably would. That didn't cross my mind, but now that I'm thinking of it, it's not really far-fetched. I mean, maybe I could do this kind of upvoting. My point here is this is definitely more the American type of death metal, but then again, this isn't really the deaths and obituaries or D-sides, not to mention Niles. So when you're thinking about American death metal, you're talking about the kind of darker, not the most catchy riffing, and remove all the melodies pretty much, and then you get the idea. All in all, in my opinion, Hyperdontia is doing a kind of a tribute to these bands or this given style, and by no means there's nothing to be ashamed of, being a kind of a revival act in that sense. But then again, if you're looking for something new, or if you're just old school and you want to stick to your guns back in the days, I don't know how this is gonna, challenge you in that sense. It depends. There are two ways to see when you're an old school fan. That is, sometimes you're like, give me more of that old school stuff that never happened or came a little bit late to the party, and you're not going to be very, very welcoming because that's what you like. You want to have all of it. But then again, you also have this other option when you're a really old school fan. You just listen to old school stuff, and when someone is going to do a, say, worship project or a retro thing, a revival thing, whatever the name you give it, you're going to say, yeah, but it's late for that. Unless you came out back in the days sounding like that, you're not gonna get into this very special boys club or whatever. So it depends which part are you. If you don't like old school death metal, then Hyperdontia is definitely not for you. There's nothing really modern about it, except maybe production in terms of it doesn't really sound like 1992, but you get the idea. It's close enough, in my opinion, to really pass that gate, and as such, if you're old school fanatic of death metal, then give it a go. But beyond that, nothing new is happening here. These guys have no new tricks up in their sleeves. That can be both a negative and positive thing. Once again, it depends what is your preference. I'm saying Hyperdontia didn't really do the trick for me with this given album, and I consider myself old school fanatic. And partly it's because this is a little bit late to the party. I mean, I kind of get why this is liked and why this is so easy to listen to. But then again, I'm rather thinking, why wouldn't I go do the ones that I love more from the given style? So in that sense, for me, this is more like a B-class attempt. So kind of nice, but you need to have some more memorability. Now, all I get to have from this album, my take is, you get the heaviness, you get the old school death metal feeling, and that's pretty good. Which means if this was playing on a festival, I would definitely go to see them, but I know I wouldn't be there for the full show. It's not that captivating. However, I haven't heard, for example, the third album, so I don't know how much the band has changed or gone through evolution. Maybe I need to figure it out at some point. But just to let you know, if you're into old school death metal, Hyperdontia is pretty much a safe bet. Just don't expect the next immolation coming out of this territory, and you're pretty good to go. Apart from that, I don't know, it depends on your taste and all. Check out the links provided for more info and obviously musical links. And of course, if you like it, go buy it. Take care and see you soon with more reviews coming your way.